everybody, and welcome to the webinar. I think we are right on time, and both our panelists are here, Dr. TVR sir and also Dr. Nandini ma'am. So, just to put a context on place as to why we are having this webinar, I would just like to tell you that this is a series that we are planning to have on environment. It's called Protect Namma Bengaluru, Episode 1, and on saving trees. And as you all know, there has been to set the context is basically we are actually planning this webinar to consult our experts here today so that we are able to get a hang of exactly what is happening at the Signaically Lake, which is actually developed into an eco zone and a biodiversified zone. So we had a visit on June 21st, and post that we have been actually looking at from Namma Bengaluru Foundation, also supported by Vijay Nishant, our urban conservationist, and also from Jatka. So we've been working with volunteers on saving trees, and this is our episode 1. And we thought we should have the best of experts with us today to talk about saving trees and how we can rejuvenate Lake Singanaknalli without damaging the ecosystem there. So without taking much of my time, I would like to give a brief introduction about Dr. T.V. Ramchandra sir. T.V. Ramchandra sir is from Indian Institute of Science, as we all know. It's a pride and privilege to have him today in this webinar. And he's the HOD and the Center of the Ecological Sciences. He specializes in conservation of ecosystems, biodiversity, ecology, hydrology, and is an expert in wetlands, ecological modeling, energy, renewable energy, soil and water pollution. Also, he has done various environment impact assessments in Bangalore City, and he's been a crusader for all of us for our lakes. And as all of you know, he's been very active and also been helping us and working with Namma Bengaluru Foundation and all the organizations, and including the government bodies, especially like our Belendu Lake and so many other lakes. And sir has been a flag bearer for us in this particular field in terms of lake conservation and environment. So he is also an awardee of Karnataka Parisara Award 2018 from the government of Karnataka. Also has been Namma Bangalorean from Namma Bengaluru Awards in 2016, and various other awards, both from India and other countries too. So without much ado, I think to set the context right, all your questions, you can put it in the chat box. And soon after Dr. and Madam Nandini speaks, we will have the Q&A session in the last 20 minutes. So I invite and welcome both Dr. Ramchandra sir and Nandini ma'am. And over to Dr. Ramchandra sir, if we can take it forward for today. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Namaste.
Thank you. See, one of the, in fact, what I have been telling over a couple of days now, as far as this project is concerned, I am not against this project, but the way it is being implemented, I am against that. First and foremost thing is the quality of the water that is being transferred. I had written to the government in 2015, what is the cost effective ways of handling this water so that the better quality water reaches the users in Kolar and Chikbalapur. But unfortunately, those suggestions are not taken seriously and is not being implemented. When the first phase of the project was implemented in Kolar, I had been there. I had suggested a wetland, constructed wetland, and also the transferring the water not through the pipe, that is through the channel, so that there is some amount of aeration happens and also the photosynthesis happens because of that treatment happens. Unfortunately, these projects are all hijacked by the pipe wallas. The people who manufacture and implement the pipes and all those things. That mafia is behind this project. That is where I see that they are keen on transporting the water in a close conduit to the destination. Now coming to the problem with the water, I'll come to the trees in a few minutes. That quality of the water, it is only the partially treated water. That means it will still have the nutrients and heavy metals. And our studies clearly shows we have done the analysis of water bodies, all the 193 lakes in Bangalore. 92% of the lakes have the contaminants in the form of the nutrients and also heavy metals. And of course, there are other issues of encroachment, etc. Coming back to the today's context, it is the pollution in the water body is a concern. Now, this contaminated water to be treated, we need to have a tertiary treatment. But what the government has done or what the concerned agencies have done is the secondary treatment. And sometimes those treatment thing doesn't work because 3 months back in January, I visited Kolar, and on that day when I visited, the black water was coming in the channel. So that means without treatment, also sometimes the water lands in the destination. But if we had the integrated constructed wetland, probably we would have given the livelihood to the local people also. At the same time, the water would have been without any nutrient or heavy metal. Now, the problem of nutrient, for example, the sewage consists of N and P. When it gets into when we fill the water with N and P, when it moves to the groundwater sources, it get oxidized and it forms nitrate. As you all know, the nitrate is a carcinogen. That means it introduces cancer in the system. Then the second part is the heavy metal. If the water is filled in the tanks and if it is used by the farmers for growing the vegetables, and that vegetable lands in Bangalore, so probably the Bangalorean don't have to take Chyawanprash from now onwards because all the food material what we take have the large amount of heavy metal. And the implication is the kidney failure and cancer in the city. Quite worrying thing. The data what I have clearly shows the increasing number of kidney failure. What was 1 in 1 lakh about 12 years back, today it's 1 in 5,000. And also I have seen the victims of this, the problem is the below poverty level people. If you go to Vartur and Balandur, you will see that one of the rural school, I saw that a girl child in LKG had a kidney failure, and in the 8th standard, both the kidneys have failed for a girl child. So this is, and when I look at their family background, the parents are, the clerks are coolies. They can't even earn more than 15,000 a month, whereas the dialysis per week requires about 2,000 to 3,000. That is a kind of the problem people are facing because of our carelessness of contaminating the surface water bodies and also transporting the water with the contamination. Now coming to the second issue is say as per the norm, any project when it is implemented, we need to have the EIA done. The environmental impact assessment should have been done. And also when we do the environmental impact assessment, it is not that it is always that goes against the government or against the proponent. Rather, the proponent also get the benefit of the alternatives and he or she can think about the viable means. For example, the alignment, the pipe that is being laid, we could have looked at the various alternatives, the alternate alignment, so that the best one we could have chosen. So that has not happened. Probably these people are moving the pipe through the public, the government properties. That is where the lakes have become a victim of that. So that's where the large removal of the trees and all happens. Now the another thing is when this kind of deliberations happens, the suggestions given by the experts, if they are not implementing, it only highlights the arrogance of the bureaucracy of 20th and 21st century in our country. We had suggested to do the planting in the buffer zone of the pipe when it was implemented in the phase one. And also, if you go through my letters and my report, I have clearly highlighted that what needs to be done in a buffer zone, what kind of species to be planted, is completely ignored. So now, removal of a large number of trees is not a good sign. In Bangalore, we are losing large number of trees. Not only the Bangalore, entire country, we are going to, especially our generation or my generation is heralding the deforestation in the country. The study what I have done in Western Ghats or in the Karnataka clearly shows that, we are losing the green cover in the country. Now, the implication of green cover is loss is that the catchment loses its ability to retain the water. That means the hydrological services provided by the catchment area is lost. So that is where we need to have the greenery in the place, and we should avoid the cutting of any trees this one when we implement the large scale project. So I do not understand when the large scale projects are implemented, there's a large chunk of money is being spent. What is the problem in having the robust EIA done
Yeah.
so that that will help the proponents or the agency which implement the project also to convince the people like us when we raise our voice. So now coming to this particular lake, the tragedy of the lake management or mismanagement is also comes to the fore. So now this lake, for some time it was a dry lake. People just went on, our fellows in the forest department were keen on the greening the with a monoculture plantation. They want to show that there is a thing that's where the species like Acacia nilotica and all those things are planted. Okay, that's where we lost the lake, but the region is with the Acacia nilotica, and of course it has given the habitat for the animals, the faunal species in the region. Now, the when we implement this kind of project, the physical integrity of the lake we cannot disturb. If the pipe is passing through the lake, certainly it's a violation of the Wetland Act. So that is what we need to keep in mind. Then, of course, the forest department might give a green signal for removing the trees. It's a it is our job to ensure that trees are not removed, because we are losing all kinds of trees. Even these planted trees also, if we lose, then what will our children will have? Neither the air nor the water. That is what has happened. I thought that when COVID happened, the global pandemic, the people have learned the lesson. But now I see that people have become more arrogant with this. So that's a very unfortunate thing. Now, to summarize what I said or what I have been telling the government is, please give the water which doesn't have any contaminants. Please have the EIA done through the reputed the agency and have a viable approach. So with the alternatives for the alignment and also alternatives for the treating the water, all these things there has to be a comprehensive package on that. The third, the suggestion is the buffer zone of the pipe. We need to have the green buffer so that over a period of time it can become a mini forest in the thing, because anyway they taking away the land from the people, so there is a buffer zone. I think that can be used for the greening the region. So, and the fourth point is integrity of the lake we cannot disturb at any cost. That is what we have to discuss, and we have to make sure they should not come with a saying that this is not a lake. Lake is a water body, and any water body has its own use value. Unlike humans, the humans could be useless also, but the natural entities have the use value to the society, and at least we should give to our children the better environment by maintaining the integrity of the ecosystem. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. So I these are my views. Okay. Yeah, we know.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, that was very short and crisp and very clear in terms of your study and also the various researches that you have done, sir. And I think, if we can see some lakes that is surviving today in Bangalore, is all because of the work and effort of you and a lot of scientists that has come forward and your invaluable services to the thing. So I think, it's very short, sir, but I think you were apt on the point, and actually you had discussed all the important criteria of the particular topography of a lake and its surroundings and the buffer zone, as you said, as well as in terms of the habitat that has actually come. Because when we visited there, sir, we could easily find out there is a lot of wildlife, as well as in terms of Schedule 1 species like the peacock, and also a lot of birds have actually had, even on the ground, the nest was found. So I think, that's one good thing that we have. So thank you so much, sir, for that.
But only before you move
Yes,
to
sir.
the next this one,
Yes, sir.
one more suggestion.
Yes, sir.
I think the lake management should not be with a minor irrigation.
Yeah.
That department is loaded with the civil engineers who do not understand the ecological function of a lake.
Exactly,
You
sir.
know why the lakes are required in the urban area, rural area, they do not understand. That's where the lakes are converted into cement bowl.
Yeah.
That these are the mistake they are doing. I think we need to. This is what I have been suggesting the NBF also for the last 3 or 4 years now.
Yes, sir.
That we need to insist the government that the Lake Conservation Act, what we had 2015, we need to get it back. And we should not go for the tank conservation thing. We should go back to the earlier act and make sure that Lake Development and Conservation Authority comes into the thing.
Yeah.
And we should not have this the minor irrigation meddling with our lakes. See, otherwise
Exactly.
all the lakes we will lose, and they will give the thing like they created a road in Vartur Lake and Balandur Lake in the lake bed itself. So, and if the government asks them to give a green signal for flyover, they will give the green signal for flyover and the lake. So
Yeah.
they do not even understand what are the ecological functions of the lake. Because
Yes,
most
sir.
of the fellows who have got appointment by through the back door, they do not have the scientific background nor the subject background to understand the importance of the water bodies. In
Yes,
fact, when I go to some of these agencies, I have seen them have literally they have become a head clerk.
yeah.
Their brain is not working. Unlike the Saram Vishweswarya who worked in this kind of the developmental project, today's engineers in this department hardly they think. They have given this project to the consultants, and it's an excess of consultants and contractors is killing the environment in the country. So that is where we need to make a noise or they raise our voice and see that the mismanagement is stopped forever. Okay, we should bring to a halt to such a kind of illogical thinking. And if the project is good, let us support it. But
Yeah.
that project should be implemented. Keeping in mind the ecological and environmental integrity of the system is maintained.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah. Very true, sir. I think, there's a lot of points that we would like to take it forward. And as you really suggested that, I think, working with the government bodies and the agencies concerned and how the irrigation department can come about saving these lakes and, of course, the command and catchment area and all the water itself, for that matter, in Singanaikanelli Lake, when we went there, we were not even able to see a steady flow of water, which is sort of the life of a lake. And as you rightly said, not making our lakes into concrete ponds. I think these are a few things, and I think we'll have to study on this further and take it up, sir. Sir, now I'd like to call upon, welcome Dr. Nandini ma'am, who is from Bangalore University. She's a professor and principal investigator of the Department of Environmental Sciences. She's specialized in environmental studies and biodiversity. She is also an expert in air pollution, water pollution, and climate change. She has also worked on toxicology, green technology, and the ecosystem services. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome
Good
to
evening.
Protect Nama Bengaluru webinar series. And this is episode 1. We are so glad to have both you and Dr. TVR sir and you in this to start and kick off this very important environmental program to retain our garden city. So, ma'am, I welcome you. And also, she's an author and an academician. I should never miss saying this because she's part of the government of Karnataka Education Board, where she's involved in writing, authoring the books under the undergraduate and postgraduate studies. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time, and thank you, sir. And welcome, ma'am. Please, I welcome you to share your words. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sri Vinodji.
Yes, ma'am.
So, good evening to all of you. Nama Bengaluru Foundation, initiated by Sri Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji, Sri Vinodji, Sri Vijay Nishant, Usha, Mrs. Usha, and Professor T.V. Ramachandra. So, young scientists and students. So I take this opportunity to share some of my research findings on lakes of Bengaluru, especially the biodiversity of Bengaluru lakes. And then finally, I will come to the current topic, that what has been, in the talk. So let me share some of the slides. I just thought I will share a few slides, which just to show like what is important in a lake. While conserving a lake, what exactly is important? I will just share the slide just now. Yes. So this is my research that I have carried out in Bangalore city. Quickly, I will move the slides because most of the aspects our professor has covered, and I will just skip some of this. So, as you all know, freshwater system and what is the importance, and how the human history, from ancient times, the civilization has been established based on the proximity of water. So they are very essential, and it is also the source of drinking water for transportation, agriculture, and for the industrial purpose, and for all and it served as an ecosystem, complete ecosystems, and the services and goods. So we have this water supply from these water bodies, direct and indirect. I will not go into detail. I will directly go to the diversity part of it. And but these water bodies are facing a lot of degradation, and because of the encroachments, pollution, eutrophication, and siltation. The eutrophication because of the entry of raw sewage without treatment plant, as Professor TV said, that the treatment plants are not, treating the water. Only, I think, not even 50% of the pollutants are treated. And so directly inlets, point source and non-point source, the pollutants are entering the water bodies. And therefore, we have lost so many lakes. And coming to this is how it was in 1960s. I think all of you know what was the number and where we are today. And the cities, lakes have been encroached, and because of the urban infrastructure, and especially in the heart of the city, the Google used to show a green, pentagon shaped green, with a diversity and the water bodies. And now we have lost that green and it's become brown. We have a brown heart of the Bangalore, and because of the loss of diversity due to all these activities. And as you all know, during 1960s, we had more than 280 lakes, and 7 were not traced, and 7 of them reduced to small pools of water, and 18 have been unauthorized encroachments by slums and private organizations and so on. And 14 at that time, 14 have dried up, and less than 80 were recorded in during 1993. During 1983-84, we were left with only 34 lakes. So it is very, the climate, it affected the regional climate of Bangalore, because we have lost that water bodies that we had in more than thousands. And so most of these lakes vanished, and this is all just an history. And 28 lakes have been used for distribution of sites and layouts and extensions, residential area. And the remaining, whatever is left, is in the state of deterioration. So the status of Bangalore lakes is in the beginning, it was naturally an undulating terrain of Bangalore city with the hills and valleys, lends itself perfectly to the development of that can be captured and store rainwater. So it was designed like that. And we had 3 valleys and series of lakes. And because of the semi-arid tropics, the area, and our forefathers had created so many water bodies. But then it is very sad to know that we are left with a very few lakes today. So this is the valleys and series that I need not go into detail. And this is about the Ulimau lake series. And you see some of the lakes, the connectivity is lost because of the encroachment and development. And even in Madhavara series also, the connectivity. And this is the major problem we are facing because of urbanization, increase in population, and developmental activities which are not sustainable. So this is all the series. And the Bairamangala series is one. The Bairamangala is one of the largest lake, almost 500 mld of water, which reaches this water body, carrying the waste water generated by the Bangalore city. And the same water in the 3 canals reaches the agriculture lands, and the land's soil is polluted, and with the heavy metals and pesticides and all kinds of carcinogenic chemicals. So the same agriculture land, the crops grown there are coming to our market, KR market, and the cattle that are being raised there, cattle drink the same water, and the milk also has been reported to have been contaminated with the heavy metals. So this is a lot of health impacts because we have lost the lakes, number one, polluted and deteriorated. And these are the lakes which have vanished from Bangalore. And all these things, I will not go into detail how the point and non-point source of pollution directly and indirectly, how the pollutants enter the water bodies, even after rejuvenating. Some of the lakes have been rejuvenated more than 2 times or 3 times, but still it is not managed. So this is because of the domestic sewage, industrial effluents, waste dumping, religious activities, washing, encroachments, agriculture runoff, sand mining, upcoming layouts, and pumping of water, and so on. So coming to the biodiversity that is left in and around our lakes, I'll just show some of the photographs of the biodiversity that we are left with. In the buffer zone catchment area. So some of the lakes I have mentioned here, where we have recorded the diversity that is present around these lakes, in and around the lakes. And these are some of the diversity which are still there. And I think we have to conserve this diversity. This is what we have been talking from the past 2-3 decades, that this is the diversity we are left with. So we have to conserve this. But what is happening is there is no change in the whatever the urban sprawl or the development activities which are not sustainable. So we have lost some of these species, and the trees that are around these water bodies are uh, of giving so much of ecosystem service to the people, the inhabitants of the local, the native residents, and these are all the diversity. I will just show the slides. And in the lake, water body, we have detected, we have recorded some of these mm, phytoplanktons, which also play a major role in maintaining the diversity and in the food web and in the photosynthesis. And when the pollutants increase, some of these diversity in the water body, they they become eutrophic. The eutrophication starts. The water becomes poisonous. The eutrophication, most of the lakes are eutrophicated, and the residents who are around, native residents, are suffering because of the health impacts. The fishes that are harvested, the fishes from this kind of water which is polluted, are also carrying the pollutants in their intestine. In the research finding, we found that the intestine tract of the fishes had some of the pathogenic microorganisms like typhoid causing organisms, Salmonella typhi, and that is also because of the contaminant in the water. So whatever the number of organisms, the typhoid causing organism in the water was also found in the intestine. So this fish is eaten by the fishing, and um, uh, people eat this, and then the health impacts because of this. And the people around this lake, when we have recorded their statements, they're suffering with some of these diarrheal problem in the enteric diseases because of the pollutant, the microorganisms and all that. And these are all some of the zooplanktons, and we have lost our original fishes, all exotic fishes are being recorded, and we lost one frog species also extinct. It's become extinct. Whatever is left is being recorded, and we wanted to at least conserve. And some of these diversity of these odonates are, it indicates that the environment is okay, it's better, clean. So these odonates are also varying, and only in some places we find these odonates. So that means we still have hope. We can protect some of these water bodies and also protect these diversity, which are very ecologically significant. Ecologically, they are giving some service for the ecosystem. So this is being recorded, so that maybe in tomorrow, if we continue with the same situation, we may not be able to see such diversity. So we'll have only in recorded. So some of these species also recorded, and so these some of the lakes shoreline. The shoreline is affected. So shoreline interface between the water and the land. Many organisms in the shoreline and shallow water habitats provide refuge from predation and egg laying, and they use as a migration. And so the diversity plays a major role in maintaining that ecosystem of that water body. So in addition to aquatic inhabitants, you see a wide number of terrestrial animals which are also making use of that water body. So it is very, very important for us to manage these shoreline with all these things like inflow of contaminated water, and the upland habitat should be prevented from its loss. It's already lost, but we have to protect, conserve, and erosion is happening in some of the shoreline, and then artificial hardening, that is human occupants, they alter the shoreline for their benefit. So that should be stopped. And the public, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Am I
Yes, ma'am.
audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
So land use, land cover change in the valley zones are the most, dangerous thing that is happening. And because of that, we have lost all the water bodies and the diversity around these water bodies. So the loss of buffer vegetation is another most important, and the industries, letting their effluents into the water body, and that inlets, and the water pollution, and what happens to the diversity in water bodies and the shoreline, all these things. And so therefore we need to look at it very seriously. And all these the owners, the shoreline ownership is right now, I think, is by all these organizations or the authorities, Jilla Panchayat, BDA, BBMP, minor irrigation, and so on. And each organization is claiming its own jurisdiction of ownership and maintenance of rights, resulting in a deficient, inconsistent, and uncoordinated approach, failure of protecting lakes and the diversity, and it leads to uncertainty of the lake data. Therefore, a uniform information and the data of the lake must be maintained by one authority. This is what is my, submission. So, as I said, there should be a 30 meters buffer and no development zone has to be maintained around these lakes. And as per the revenue records of BDA, RMP, and Section 17 of Karnataka Town Country Planning Act 61, wetland conservation rules, Government of India wetland regulatory framework, all these, according to this, we need to maintain this 30-meter buffer of no development zone, which is lacking in most of the water bodies. So just to show the shoreline map and what are the issues the water bodies face, and this is the buffer zone that should be maintained, and this is the water body, and you see a different kind of activities, anthropogenic activities, agriculture runoff, artificial hardening, the commercial plantation, drainage clogging, and fishing, illegal encroachments, idle immersion, laundry activities, washing vehicles, soil erosion, sand mining. There's so many issues for the water bodies. So this is there for most of the lakes, and how the waste is being dumped on all these lakes. And this is another lake, same issue, but the degree of all these issues, number of issues for every lake is unique. Every water body has to be assessed like this. As Prof said, we have to have an EAA done, and a buffer zone and a shoreline management has to be prepared by the present topic. I'll come to that. So that is why I'm showing these issues. Now, this is another lake, Oskare Lake. You see the issues, and there is fencing is being destroyed. There's no fencing. Fencing also is disrupted in between most of the part of the lakes. And this is the Oskare Lake. And quickly I will just show. And this is the Subrapanyapura Lake, also having all these issues, whatever I have discussed. And now these are all the phytoplanktons we have recorded, and just a glimpse of that for you all. And you can see the eutrophication of Bairamangala Lake, and how they collect some of this for fodder, and the local native people, community, we have recorded their statement why these lakes are eutrophicated, why the lakes are receding, what is the reason. So all that problems, issues, what I said before is same thing repeated by these local residents. So now these are all the issues. I think all of you are aware of this. I just showing, taking you around for this lakes issues. And now, so just now there's another thing that carbon dioxide emission in the wastewater. Wastewater not treated properly, it enters the water body, and from the last 3 years, it was recorded that research finding that every year the emissions are increasing from these water bodies, not the mistake of the water body, it's because of the wastewater entering, wastewater being dumped without treatment, no treatment. And so this is methane, and you can see the blue is the, it is during 17, during 18, during 2019, you can see every year it is increasing. The emissions are increasing. And the development mention also speaks about the no person or institution or organization or company or firm or association, government, department, corporation, or any local or other authority and their agents, employees, or anybody on their behalf they will not use the lake for any other purpose other than storage of water or mentioned in what it's mentioned in rule. And they should not have any construction, any structure on the lakeland, occupy any lakeland for any other developmental activity, or construct any commercial or residential apartments and industrial activity other than storing water. So this is very clear from this act. And also about dumping and all those things is being said, but whether we are practicing this is the question. So we have been doing research, we have been publishing these papers, writing in the news media, telling that this should not happen, the rule is there, act is there, guidelines are there, but why again we are going deteriorating, the lakes are deteriorating even after rejuvenation. So this is, and finally about the present lake issue. Singanayakanahalli Kere is the first lake in the Yellamalappa Shetty Lake series, and is surrounded by agriculture lands with almost 400 acres. And there's a small lake near to it is being rejuvenated, not this lake. And almost 10 villages depend on this used to depend on this lake for their agriculture. And the groundwater depth now has reached up to 1,200 to 1,300 feet. This is expressed by the local native resident. And there's a nearby forest that is Jharkhandi Reserve Forest, uh, uh, and an Novelty State Forest. And this forest, as a species, scheduled species diversity. And so, because this Singanayakanalli lake is not conserved or not protected, all these species are almost coming to this place for other purpose. And rainwater is the main source for this lake, and the inlet is at the north, and state highway is there, that is outlet, that is in the south, and there's a railway line going, highway in the west. So this is how it is, the railway line is almost in the buffer zone. That is what I have understood. And so there are agricultural lands, and the water is, receded. And you can see that is a succession, that water body has become shallow, and then it has come back to the land. It's a transition zone. Slowly it has becoming a forest land. And we can see many trees growing there, thousands, and which are very important. And when we talk about biodiversity, but of course, there are some jali and mara and acacia species, which, if at all, we are rejuvenating this lake because for the farmers, for the local residents, for the fulfilling our sustainable goals, our country's sustainable goals. We need to take care of the food security, food, agriculture, crops. So the water should be, rejuvenated. Lake should be rejuvenated, but at the same time, some of the trees which are very useful, like Bevu, Nerale, Honge, Tore Matti, Shivani, Sihi Unse, and other can be transplanted, or we can look for an alternate way of retaining most of the trees without axing them. But the lake can be rejuvenated with all these conditions, with all these EIA report and other things. So this is how the Singanayakanalli is in the top, and the connectivity, I think, is lost. So as per the project, what is being the at present, they say the lake is around 262 acres, but according to the local residents, they say it is 400 acres. So it is very important that we take into consideration the local residents, local native residents, the people who are living there, who have lived there for more than 30 years, and they are called as the original residents. So they had their say, and I think we should remember Ramsar Convention very clearly mentions that establishing a holistic system of ecosystems and biodiversity conservation with vegetation, aquatic life, landscape around the lake with all the tank is to fulfill irrigation, water supply for human consumption, at the same time conserving the diversity. So decadal changes in the this Singanayakanahalli in 2007, there was a little bit of diversity, but you see in 2021, it's completely with some biodiversity with the trees. So what I feel is because they are planning for rejuvenating 65 tanks will get water. So it's a good thing, but then how it has to be done has to be, taken care of. And native residents' decision, they should be in the decision making, and the volunteers and the organizations who are interested, who are showing a lot of contribution towards, like Namma Bengaluru, they have to be involved in the decision making also, and the experts, environmentalists. So I think with this, I conclude, and community-based lake conservation management has to be implemented. Citizen participation can make a huge difference in reviving back the lake. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
all.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nandini, ma'am. I think it was a very detailed presentation. And ma'am, if you can stop sharing the screen, I think we will move on to the question Q&A. And in the interest of time, I will ask the panel to keep it very, very brief and ask the experts here, TVR sir and Dr. Nandini ma'am, your questions, please. Usha? I think there is some questions in the chat box, maybe.
Chat box, not much, Vinod. You
Yeah.
already got the list of questions. If you can please call out the names. Jatka had shared it with you, right? People
Yeah, well, maybe, Santosh, if he's here. Can we unmute Santosh?
Sandosh, right?
Yeah, Santosh.
Sir, can you please unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yes, madam. Yeah.
Yeah, Santosh, you can go ahead with the question.
So I was thinking, how can we reclaim the encroached lake? There's huge structures. The biggest challenge what we're facing is the 100 acres of lake have come down to 80 acres and 60 acres. And if the immediate development is not going to happen, I think you will find more structures coming in. So this was my concern. How do we reclaim?
Yeah. Dr. TVS, sir?
Well, if there is a will, there is a way. For example, if you look at the famous case of Cochin, this one, how the wetland was abused there and the buildings were removed subsequently. See, for all those things, the youngsters of today need to have a spinal cord. Okay. Then if they can assert their right for the lake, then things will change in the country. Otherwise, the mafias will take over, as I have mentioned earlier. So that is going to happen. There is for example, since Namma Bangalore Foundation is actually involved in the Bangalore, I would suggest NBF to insist for a carrying capacity study of Bangalore city.
Okay.
And to see whether the city has crossed the limit. Because I have talked about this. I've been telling the government that there has to be a limit on the kind of development they are coming up with. In the last 4 decades, there has been a 1,055% increase in the concrete area. We have lost 88% vegetation and about 29% of water bodies in the city. The city, when it loses these green spaces and the water body, the implication is the groundwater is. That's where, as Professor Nandini talked about the groundwater going down to 1,200, 1,900 feet. If you look at for example, when the lake was there in Nagshettihalli, the groundwater table was 100 to 200 feet. After 5 years, I noticed it became 600 to 700 feet. Today, they have gone to 1,900 feet. That is over a period of about 20 years, and there is no water. That highlights there is a link between the surface water body and the open spaces with the groundwater sources. See, if we cannot do anything to our children, at least let us ensure that they are not deprived of water. That is where I've been insisting the government that we need to rejuvenate the lakes in Bangalore. And we are, more importantly, we need to have the interconnectivity among the lakes so that the water from one lake to the other lake can move, and the buffer zone of the lake and Raja Kalways and stormwater drain has to be respected. So this has to be done on the priority. There is a data available. All of us have the data, including the BBMP has the data, but there is no action on the ground. Okay, that is where we need to come up with the kind of the thing. I would suggest NBF insisting for the government to have the carrying capacity so that let us think about decongesting Bangalore, and also make sure that whoever committed a sin of encroaching the public common goods, the public park or the lake, they have to pay the price. So that's the very good question. But only the thing is, we have been trying for that. For example, in Balandur and Vartur, I was in the NGT committee and we got evicted some of the buildings. But after the committee submitted a report, I saw some of the buildings have come back. So these are the kinds of things that happens in our system. So that is where I think a vigilant society, that is where public participation is equally important for conserving or protecting any the open spaces or any common lands or the common the spaces like lakes, etc. Okay.
Yes.
So just to continue on this, no doubt the Cochin Maradu, it was a remarkable judgment. By this judgment, I think the land sharks have become very, very scared about this. So one more thing to add on to this, there are a lot of lakes in Bangalore which is already gone through an DPR. The project is ready for execution and it has still been stalled. So in those lakes, I see a lot of encroachment still happening, in spite of the DPR getting approved and the funds are also being allocated. In a couple of lakes, after the COVID in between came up, the project is stopped, but still the encroachment is still continuing. So this is I think it's a concern.
Well, I agree with that. See, that is where our system has to be foolproof to make sure that encroachment becomes a kind of offense, so that they have to pay the price. Now the encroachers can get away with their muscle power. That's what is happening in the places. For example, in Balandur Lake, I saw one of the encroacher when the committee went. The National Green Tribunal committee, where I was a member, I was attacked by that goon. So this is the kind of the thing that is happening in the country. That is where we have become minority, and many people do not want to take the risk. But the only weapon I would say is the data and the information. If NBF can have a foolproof data of the lake, buffer zone, and what is happening with the time, with the remote sensing data is available, it's not that difficult. So they can offer internship to the many youngsters so that the students, the interns can do this kind of analysis. And so in over a period of time, you will have the data so that you can take many cases of public. One of the other issue is the Balandur and the Agara Lake, this one. Between that wetland was there. That has been given for SEZ. I've been fighting for the removal of the SEZ. I requested the NBF and also the MP also, Honorable MP, I wrote a couple of mails also. So, but still nothing much has happened. I think NBF has to chip in as earlier and make sure that SEZ is removed from that area. Raja Kalwe in that region, if you look at, which was 80 meter earlier, today it is reduced to 15 or 20 meter by BBMP just to help the builders. It looks to me the bureaucracy of today are for the builders and the contractors, not for the public. They are supposed to be a public servant, but I see it's being mismanagement all around this one. Now,
True,
there is another question by Ronak Gandhi about, can I take it up and answer?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
yes, please, sir.
Okay. He asked about the lakes getting or a wetland getting empty. See, this is what I've been telling. For any lake or any water body, there is a watershed. The catchment area or a watershed, the integrity of the catchment or a watershed or Jalanayana Pradesh matters in the water sustenance. See, our study shows in a region where native species are there in the catchment, the lake or the river having the water all the 12 months. When the catchment is removed of the native species vegetation and converted into monoculture plantations, then it becomes 6 to 8 months water holding. Then when the catchment was degraded to an extent, the green cover less than 20 or 30%, we see only during the monsoon the water in the lake or a river. This study I did in Western Ghats and also replicated in Bangalore. To highlight further, see in IISc campus I have a water body which I have created in 2008. Also I have created a mini forest of 2 hectares area. Okay, in that area in 90s when I was a student, that area was dominated by Parthenium. I planted around 500 saplings in the region of 49 species. Today, you get a feel of the rainforest of Western Ghats in that site. And more importantly, the groundwater table in that region today is at 10 to 15 feet compared to 150 feet in 90s. That means this highlights if you want water in the underground sources, you need to have a recharge. Only way to recharge is having appropriate greening in the catchment area. Now coming to Gujarat, the tragedy of Gujarat is the concretization, similar to Bangalore. Sabaramati, the channel is also concretized and it is showcased as the world best project in the thing. Because the entire globe, I think the major section of the people do not understand the linkages between the hydrology and the ecology and environment. They go by the aesthetic beauty of the system. So we need to look at the scientific aspect and respect the mother nature if you want water. So I keep telling all the students very often is please respect mother earth like you respect mother at home. Then no one knows abuse the thing. We will all have the water. So that is what we should make sure. And we should make sure that water is not contaminated also. Okay. My suggestion to my friend from Gujarat is make sure in the map the catchment area, make sure that catchment area at least have a green cover of 33% of native species. Okay, that is where the buffer zone has to be earmarked, and make sure on priority the buffer zone of the lake has the green the shield, and then beyond that one can have the green the cover so that you will have the water in the lake or a wetland throughout the year. So only way to have the water in the wetland is by maintaining the integrity of the catchment or the watershed region. Okay. I think I have answered him. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
We have Mr. Kumar, sir, who has just posted a question. Is it really possible to rejuvenate the lake by retaining the vegetation in the catchment? Mr. Kumar?
If Kumar is not here,
Yeah.
what about
Yeah,
He's there, he's
Okay.
there.
Good evening to one and all,
Good.
sir. Sir, my question is posted in the chat box. So
Can
I
you
will.
please repeat it, Kumar?
Is it really possible to rejuvenate the lake by retaining the vegetation in the catchment area? So because if so, it is like say if it is possible. So like during the rejuvenation program where we need to go for desiltation. So during desiltation again where the trees roots will be uprooted. So during that again where vegetation will get affected. Is it really possible to rejuvenate by retaining the thing? Like that?
So,
Yeah.
can I answer,
Yes,
Please,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Dr. Kumar? I think, see, we have to try our level best to retain the diversity trees. See, even we can have a island like how we have in Hebal Lake. An island can be created in the middle where we can protect some of the trees which are very useful. And those trees where many birds and they come for breeding and for all other ecosystem services are provided. So rest of the see water body is also very, very important. So that can be thought of. That is why one EIA has to be prepared, a plan, a management plan, and then all these points can be, taken care of, including the local residents, their views, and how important is for them, which is this, I think I answered your question. And one more I saw in the chat box about the people buying Lakeview apartments. So they should see, I have visited an apartment, which is a Lakeview apartment near HAL towards that side. And there were more than 1,000 houses and very a posh apartment, and the lake has become like a small pond, almost like a toilet. And those residents complained to us when we visited that they cannot open their windows nor the door. They can't keep it open because the mosquitoes and the smell, because of hydrogen sulfide that is being emitted from that pool, that is a toilet, because their own toilet pipes and their sewage pipes are dug in there, because it is a Lakeview apartment. And after paying 2.5 crores and 3 crores per house, the food also, what they keep outside, they say the color of the food changes, and the gold jewelry also has become black. That's what a resident, one of the lady, expressed, that this is what has happened. So the residents, the people who are buying also should have some knowledge about protecting the lakes, protecting diversity. So I think that is, I saw in the chat box, is that I feel is correct.
Can we just take another 2 or 3 more questions, sir, madam?
Maybe I will add to what Professor Nandini said about it. See, if the lake is polluted and if there is a Lakeview apartment, I would say that people end up paying more. For example, the study by my students in Vattur area, we saw that there is a disincentive in the form of people have to pay for the medicine, repellents, etc., to an extent of 40,000 to 50,000 rupees per year per family. This is the cost they are going, and they are always threatened by the mosquitoes. They can't even keep their windows open or the door open in the late evening, and children cannot play, and children will not have any recreation because they are always kept inside in the fear of mosquitoes, etc., and the diseases. So in the process, their 2 crore, they may end up in spending another 2 crore, and they will have to pay the heavy price. Okay. Then the another thing is regarding Kumar's question. See, what we need to do is, okay, if they want to remove the tree, let them have the EIF first, and through that, removal of tree is inevitable. Second thing is, in the buffer zone, let them create a forest in the 30 meter, and whatever the number of trees they are going to remove, they either have to transplant it and or plant the new saplings which are at least 2 to 3 years old and show us that a greenery in that region. Then I am sure things will work. See, unless we assert it and we listen to these fellows, they are going to continue to fool us with this kind of argument. And I think we need to be logically this one to argue with this bureaucracy also. Otherwise, they always have an upper hand, and that's how they convince even the judiciaries like National Green Tribunal. The case of buffer zone, how the mafias have taken over the Bangalore, and how that buffer zone, which we had got it 75 meters, these builders and the bureaucracy made sure it is 30 meters. With the argument they put forward was that the Mumbai has or Hyderabad has 15 meters. Why should Bangalore Lake should have 30 meters or 75 meters? Unfortunately, none of us argued properly. That is where we failed miserably. That's where organizations like NBF should take the help of the experts of the local and put forward the case. In fact, we prepared the concept note, we passed it on to the relevant parties. I do not know why it was not given to the court, because when I talked to the court people, they said they never got my letter. So that is what happened. That kind of communication gap has also to be reduced, so that if you want to see these ecosystems are different. Now, and also the importance of the lake, if you want to know the kind of goods and services the ecosystem provides, the Professor Nandini talked about it. We have done the quantification. For example, Rachinalli Lake, every day, the worth is about 10,500 rupees per hectare per day. If you pollute, the value has come down to 20 rupees per day per hectare. This publication is available online. You can have a look at it. Who are the people who get benefited because of the lake? The fishermen, washerwomen, and the farmers. All these people get the benefit of the lake. And that means without even thinking of Make in India or a Skill India or this one, we can create a job for these people so they don't have to go to the government and ask for the job. So, the nature is giving them enough. Let us not pollute and deprive this section of the society of the right to live. That is my reason in my writings also. I have talked about it quite often. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Next question from Mr. Kailas Nathan.
You can unmute yourself, sir.
He's already unmute.
No, he's not unmuted. Kailasanathan, I found him muted.
Okay. Sir, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Hello, good evening. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thanks to Mr. Vinod Jacob for inviting me, and excellent presentation by both the champions of this crusade of this trees and lakes and all that. And actually, I'm recently relocated to Bangalore. I was a scientist, principal scientist from Indian Agriculture Institute, where we took some projects in the Aravalli regions, actually. So we could see what do you tell, we already in 10 years back, how the quarrying was carrying on in the Aravalli Hills and then sabotaging the whole ecosystem there. So we convinced the people of that village. They are very hard to believe. These farmers are slightly hooded. They never get convinced so quickly, and they're all politicians are also there. But somehow we caught hold of the panchayat people who are, fortunately they were ladies actually. So we said we are going to build up a small temple with a pond. So whatever the runoff that was coming due to the erosion of that quarrying and all that, so we conserve it in that particular pond, and we ask them to take bath or whatever is there, testing the water quality and all that. And the whole team was working. We are from the Water Technology Center of IARA, where I am a climatologist actually. We got a very good team of all the multidisciplinary group. What I feel, it is just a participation of the people, village people. Once they take you in confidence, then nothing like that. These politicians can be thrown off like anything, no problem. So only thing is we should convince, and convincing the farmers is the most difficult thing. Somehow we convince, and particularly through ladies we could convince, because they could tell the other people, oh, this is the thing, all in Hindi and Haryanvi and all that. So because Haryanvi is slightly, they are very robust and minds are all different. But anyway, we just followed it. And like that, we associated with the TBS, Tarun Bharat Sangh. Dr. Rajendra Singh was the champion of that Alwar side. We visited there and we stayed there for a week. And there were some Australians and other people who also cooperated. Then we said, how would you do? And fortunately, we are thankful to CSE, Center of Science and Environment. And we should collaborate such people also in Namma Bangalore also. I feel Sunita Narayan is a very crusading lady, very strong lady. She don't care for anybody. So we are associated. Basically, we are Dr. Anil Agarwal. So all these things made us to think about people's participation. That's very important, what I feel, which I also wrote in the chat box also. Really excellent presentation with these two people. Unless we involve ourselves committed to this, then we cannot do anything. So we have to do something. In some, even the 1% we get success, that's a great thing for us. So anyway, thanks to you people for inviting me. I am with my son here after retirement. Anyway, I'm just, I thought I can interact with you people, and thanks for the chance given to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And Ramachandra ji and Jacob sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And it's lovely to hear that you have really enjoyed the webinar, and especially with all this. And we like you to take actively participate in our webinars in the future
sir.
also. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Smith.
Do we have any more questions in the
Yeah,
interest of time? Yeah.
We have two more people who have posted their question. One is Mr. Santosh.
Yes.
Would you like to ask your question, sir? Mr. Santosh? Yes, you can ask your question, sir.
My name is Santosh. Actually, my question is very simple. It is regarding EIA, means during the presentation as well as our uh, respected sir Vichanand sir also mentioned that EIA should be carried out because since I'm from environmental background, there are no such statutory body which says what should be the structure of EIA, because MOF has categorized some 41 projects which has mentioned about the manual and TWAS, how the EIA has to be carried out. When it comes to like different people have different prospect, and there is no standard procedure to means in preparation of EIA. That is one point, and there are so many aspects when we discuss about lakes and its conservation. Normally, what we see in urban as well as rural areas, desiltation of lake, we can now and then we can see from lakes after every during dry season. So desalination, unscientific desalination, the desiltation of lake, how it will impact if we wanted to record it. And so what would be the actual procedure for desiltation of lake? If anything is there, that will be helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See, Mr. Santosh, if you want to know what is the desiltation, what quantity of silt has to be removed, I would advise you to go through our publication entitled Blueprint for Rejuvenation of the Bellandur and Vattur Lake, wherein we have done the bathymetry analysis to find out what is the quantity of silt that has accumulated in the lake over a period of time. We know what was the earlier depth, and above that, whatever the current depth, if you take a difference of that, you will come to know what is the quantity of silt that has been accumulated and that has to be removed. Okay, this is the one part of the question I have answered. Second thing is you talked about EIA. In fact, EIA is is a well defined system. In fact, over a period of time, there are a lot of refinement has happened, and of course, there are a lot of dilutions also happened to help Ambanis and other people in the system, especially textile sector, etc. Now, if you look at EIA, the screening of a project is the first step, wherein we categorize the project as A and B category, or B is further divided into B1 and B2, where A category are the big projects, which are handled at the ministry at the Delhi, while the B1 and B2 are handled in the respective appraisal committees at the state level. Okay, so there is a prescribed format is there. So one need to apply for that. Then the committee will look at the first the presentation, and then will give the terms of reference if the project requires EIA. For any project, before you take it up, you need to have a consent for establishment. That is what you make application in the Pollution Control Board. Depending on the merits of the project, the Pollution Control Board will ask you to get an environmental clearance from the state level appraisal committee or the central appraisal committee. That is where EIA comes to the picture. And EIA could be a rapid in the case of B1 and B2 project, or the bigger project, it has to be a seasonal, so that throughout the year the data is required, especially related to the biodiversity, hydrology, etc. So, and it is scrutinized by the committee of the 9 experts, and of course some bureaucrats are also in the committee. And unfortunately, I've seen most of these committee members are without the spinal card. If the chief minister of the state calls, they will just make sure the project is clear. So these are the kinds of problems we are still facing in the system. So unless there is a refinement happens in the country, this will continue. For the refinement to happen, as rightly mentioned by Dr. Kailas Nathan, that we need to have a public participation. When public raises the voice the right way, then things will work in the country. It should not be like sometimes the TV discussions in the late evening I see in the channels. It is only the noisy discussion. What we need is the intellectually rewarding discussion, so that the youngsters can take this idea forward and make sure that the abuse of the mother nature comes to an end, and also mismanagement comes to an end. So that can happen only when people assert their right. The moment I feel that Bangalore belongs to me, I will not allow any that kind of sense of belonging has to come in every youngster. When they have the sense of belonging, they will neither allow the parks to be encroached nor the lakes to be encroached. So that's where, since I have been made Nama Bangalorean, I feel that Bangalore is mine. And that's where I go around and see whether any encroachment happens. I have been raising my voice. I mean, not just now,
Yes, sir.
even earlier for the last 2 decades, I have been in this one. So, and we have come up with a scientific report sometime on our own. Our fellowships only we have used for the thing. Nobody has funded the project because of the societal the requirement and the society relevant research we have been doing. So that at the end of the day, if the youngsters get clean air and water, I would say that the investment on me by the society in the form of getting the PhD, etc., is justified. Otherwise, I would be like one more academician in the field, would have published the publication and would have got the glory of the day and would have gone to the grave. So only the thing is, what we have been doing is, some of us is making sure that our children will have clean air and water, and also our elders in the Bangalore. Okay.
So can we just take one last question?
Sure.
Mr. Abhijit, can you please unmute yourself? Yes, sir. You can ask your question.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me. And first of all, I want to thank all the panelists for having such an important, relevant, informative session. My question is about the root of all these issues. Is it the aggregation of human population to the very few major metropolitan cities is one of the major issues of all the environmental challenges that we are facing?
Well, Abhijit, I do not agree with you. See, if you look at the unplanned, the urbanization is the root cause. Why are we having everything in Bangalore? That is where the problem. In fact, we should look at our population as an asset. We should not go by the Westerners thinking, saying that population is the curse in the. I would say population in our country is a good asset, and if we can train them, it could become we can make the country also a very proud country. That is what we should do it. See, what we have to do is, we need to have the awareness among the public. That means environmental education has to be made mandatory at all levels, so that everyone becomes environmentally literate. For example, I have done a study to see the environmental literacy in Bangalore. General literacy is quite good in Bangalore, as high as 85.85%, next to Mumbai, where it is 88% is the general literacy. But when I look at Bangalore's environmental literacy among the Bangaloreans, this I have done in the traditional part of Bangalore, I found only 3.5% of Bangaloreans are environmentally literate. That means 96% of Bangaloreans are Shatamurkas. They do not know from where the water comes, what is the use of the tree. They think the tree will have the litters, bird dropping, that's a nuisance. Some of them even do not know from where the milk comes. That is the tragedy of the system. So my only thing is, we need to have the environmental education at all levels, so that everyone understands the thing. Say, for example, if you look at the districts like Shivamogga, Uttar Kannada district, where environmental literacy is as high as 45 to 50%, I see the forest cover also as high as 45 to 50%. In Bangalore, I have a tree cover of 4%, equivalent to the environmentally literate people. Even if that environmentally literate people go away from the Bangalore, then probably I would say the Bangalore is going to have the doomsday. See, when you look at the Bangalore, today the oxygen level has gone down. There are instances, even before COVID, some of the senior people in the age group of 50 plus, they were using oxygen cylinders. That is because of the less tree cover in the city, and lakes have been abused and polluted. So the Professor Nandini showed the methane emission, etc., from the lake, and also it has become a cesspool, and there are various disease vectors are thriving in the lake. So we allow the lake to get contaminated. We sit in apartment, we just look at the lake as if it is a water body, but water body without having a life is of no use. So that's where the day when Bangaloreans say that no one can pollute the lake, I am sure that all the lakes we can make sure and give it safely to our children in a better shape. That can happen only when we have the environmental concept clarity in our mind. And if we can practice that, then certainly things will work for the country. Okay.
Shall I add two
Yes,
points?
yes, ma'am.
To 2 points to Dr. Santosh's question and Mr. Abhijit's question. And see, EIA is being prepared for any project at the beginning. Before they get a clearance from the state or the center, because I am part of the central committee, I know how it works. And the EIA means all the impacts. It may be water, baseline studies, water, then hydrogeological studies, the air quality, the noise, all these things have to be done and then clear the project. So before that, they need to prepare the status report. So that is the guidelines are available, Santosh, and if you need more details, then I will be very glad to share it with you later. And number two, coming to the Abhijit's question, population plays the major role. See, when we prepared the people biodiversity register for Bangalore, we found that 40 to 47% of the people didn't know that PIL, what is PIL, public interest litigation. So as Professor said, the awareness is less, but sir, coming to the awareness, introducing the subject, making it mandatory, compulsory, we have done it. I have introduced these compulsory core modules subject UGC has prescribed, and I'm the first one to introduce in Bangalore. So all the degree students study environment as one of the compulsory paper. So they are given knowledge, but how they take it is important, attitude and perception. So that again plays a major role. Number two, we have trained more than 700 teachers who are teaching environmental studies. Just to bring awareness to all the youngsters, because our future citizens, they are our future. So that has been already done. And again, in the new education policy, we are going to introduce this subject as one of the most important, as a skill development and also as a compulsory paper. So we are actually doing our part as an academician, training the students, our future. So it is happening, and I've written a book, and it is the 10th, more than 1.5 lakh people have referring that book of environmental studies. And in the ministry also, environment clearance are given very, very strict. No, as because I'm myself being a part of it, I know how it is given. EIA reports are taken very seriously, and the public opinion is very, very important for us, and at least for me and for the committee who are with me. So I think this clears these two questions. So in future, I think we will have more students. We are up to it. We are preparing the syllabus. It will be shortly implemented. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. And that was a great explanation, I think. Usha, we have any more questions, or I think we are past time. I think
We are past time, but I think
over
there is
time.
one more question. Maybe we can share it with sir and madam later, so they could answer
Yes.
it via mail.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we have come to the close of this webinar. I think it was a very educational webinar, sir. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ramchandra and also Dr. Nandini ma'am. Thank you so much, and especially for all the participants and the citizens who joined us today. I think for what the future generation lies is very important is the oxygen that the trees give, and also it works as a natural, clean air. It cleans the air, and also the lakes and the water. I think these are two crucial issues. And taking the points away from Dr. Tivia, sir, definitely, sir, we will support you and we will, as Namma Bengaluru Foundation, work on this and create more awareness and citizen and community engagement in the future time to come. Thank you, one and all. Thank you for joining us today, and stay safe, stay healthy, and wish you all a happy weekend. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please follow us on Namma Bengaluru Foundation in our Facebook page and the Twitter handle. And please do share your thoughts. We'll also, you can email us also, and we'll take the questions to Dr. TVR sir and Dr. Nandini ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining today.